Welcome everybody. Today with me, I have Mike Woods, and I don't think he needs any introduction, but you're the only sub 4-minute miler to finish the Tour de France. But more impressively, you finished 7th in the Vuelta, won a stage. You won Milano Torino last fall, right? I think.
Yeah.
Milano Torino. And you finished second on the podium of some big classic races. So welcome. And we've already talked a little bit about how you're doing, but how's the baby, first of all? And congratulations. And how's Ellie doing after all of that?
Oh, thanks. Little Max is doing awesome. She's 3.5 months old now. Finally starting to get some good sleep, and she's doing fantastic. Ellie's doing really well as well. My wife, she it was a good birth. She went smoothly, and we've just really been enjoying. Actually, we've been enjoying the lockdown and just having more quality time with her.
Nice. Okay, so how's your Lion King practice going?
It's going well. She likes to be lifted up and thrown around, basically. So she likes movement. We're worried at the moment that got a bit of a Mike Woods version 2.0 on our hands, because when I was a little kid, I just had an abundance of energy. I couldn't be worn out, and it seems like she has that same level of energy. So Ellie's looking towards a lot more sleepless nights in the near future, I think.
Sign up for a track club. Okay, so let's get in some rapid fire questions, and I kind of have like most memorable race and all this kind of stuff. So you can talk about running or riding. I think people on here are happy to talk about both. So let's start with, what's your most memorable race?
I'd say my most memorable race had to have been winning stage at the Vuelta in 2018. It was just after, it was a month and a half after we lost our son Hunter. We had a stillbirth, and after the loss of Hunter, I put in this insane training block. I trained super hard, and there's no other way that I could think of honoring him but by doing well on the bike, because I'm not great at much else at least at that moment I wasn't. And so I focused on just training as hard as I could and trying to win a bike race. And that bike race came in the form of winning the Vuelta, and it was a cathartic moment. I cried probably every day for the next week after that win. It's really memorable for a lot of reasons. Yeah,
I think it was memorable for all of us too, because I guess reasonably you kept the news to yourself, and then when it came out after that, well, I guess during your post-race interview, that you'd done it for Hunter, it was certainly like tear-jerking for, I think, the majority of cycling fans. So that's great. What's the race you'd most like to forget?
The last one I did. I just did Paris-Nice, and breaking my femur was probably one of the most traumatic things that's ever happened to me in my racing career. It was the most traumatic thing that's ever happened to me in my racing career. It was just a really bad crash. I was going really fast, and honestly, if it had gone differently, if my leg wasn't the first point of contact, I could have been in a far worse position. I was going really fast. So I'm fortunate to have just come out with a broken femur, and broken it in a place that didn't have too many complications. Like if it was higher up, I probably would have had serious hip issues, lower down, serious knee issues. So lucky, but I would love to forget that race.
I think a lot of people would love to forget that race, though it's the one thing like everyone was clinging on to during, as everything else is getting canceled. It was like, Paris is still going. It's the one ray of light.
It was a really weird race for that reason. It felt like the world's, the entire cycling world was focused on that race, because everyone just wanted it. They wanted that race to be happening. And race I'd like to forget. I've raced Paris twice now, and in both instances, they were just brutal. Always terrible weather, hard racing conditions, lots of stress. And I want to forget this last one.
Okay, this one I know you're kind of not an odd cyclist, but you're different than a lot of the European guys in the sense that you kind of really hammer your workouts when you do riding. So what's your favorite workout?
My favorite workout, I call it my form finder. It takes about 6.5, sometimes 7 hours. And what I'll do is I'll just go out to this one climb called Bracones, which is near, it's about an hour and a half away from here. And I'll go and ride up to Bracones and ride that at a pace that's not super hard, but not easy. Then go down, and I'll go up another climb called I'll either do Col Fred, which is a climb close by, or this climb up to Elfar. So there are two climbs that are close to that one, and I'll go at that one as if Team Ineos is riding the pace at the front. Chris Froome's in the race, like just a hard pace for the second last climb of a race, where it whittles the group down to like 25, 30 riders. So really knowing hard pace. And then once I do that, then I'll ride back towards Girona and hit a classic climb in the area called Rocacorba. And Rocacorba is about 45 minutes to an hour away from where I live in Girona. And yeah, I'll just do that one as hard as I possibly can. And I'll be at like the 5.5, 6 hour mark. And if I hit the number, if I hit a certain number on that last climb, if I'm able to go, and do it in about 28 minutes, then I know I'm ready to race. I'm ready to smash a good race.
Do you have the Strava KOMs?
No, I'm 17 seconds off the COM on that one. It's held by a guy named James Knox, another pro, but a lot of great riders in the area are on that list. And yeah, I just missed it. Actually, yeah, I just missed it. I was pretty ticked off. I thought I had it, and then it came home, uploaded Strava, and 16 seconds off, I think it was.
You need to bring Phil Guyman over, and he can pace you up half the way, and then go for
maybe. Rocacorba is not Phil's jam. Actually, it's a bit too steep for. I think it's a bit too steep for Phil. Phil likes the more shallow climbs, but it'd be nice to have a little help for the first half.
All right. Well, maybe if this continues on any longer, you'll be able to bring somebody in because there's going to be no races to do. All right. What's your least favorite workout?
Least favorite workout? Anything that has to do with super high and like 1 minute repeatability stuff. I hate. I don't like that. I used to live for 1 minute efforts when I was a track runner, when I was running the mile. Used to love doing 10 times 400 meters with a minute rest kind of thing, just slamming myself. But as I've aged, I really dislike the short, intense stuff, and really enjoy the mental challenge of like longer workouts. I like long 30, 40 minute efforts where I'm kind of challenging myself and thinking a lot more as opposed to just smashing myself.
I had Jared Ward and Dylan Wykes on last week, and their answer was, in terms of running, was like the complete opposite. They hated the short stuff. They're like, give me 10-mile tempo any day of the week. So
not the opposite. That's the same.
Well, as a runner, you said that you liked the.
Oh yeah.
So they were the total
opposite. I think that's the same. That's the same. It'd be the same for me now as a runner. Okay. I don't think even if I was running now, I would want to do 10. Like if you told me to do 10 times 400, there's no way I'd want to do that. I'd much rather do long tempos and just long runs. And I actually, even as I was fading out of running, I was doing that kind of stuff. I was getting more away from the short intervals because they were just they were impacting me so much physically, and so I was enjoying the longer stuff a lot more.
Okay, so if you could do another Olympic sport, not running or cycling, what would it be?
If I could do another Olympic sport, it'd definitely be tennis. I think tennis would be really sweet. Tennis or maybe basketball. Yeah.
You could take on Shapovalov or one of those guys.
I think the idea of doing tennis would be sweet just because it's not. I don't know. They've got great sponsors. It's they live like a really cushy life, but they're also good athletes, and they live the yacht life. They have the Esquire watches. They make insane prize money, but then they also have they don't have to for as much as we do.
Yeah, especially except for a few matches, not as long for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So some longer answer questions. I know you've talked about this before, but can you discuss a little bit about your running career and why you made that transition into cycling?
So I started cycling because of a significant injury to my left foot. I had a navicular stress fracture that just wouldn't heal. I could never get over it. I was a nationally ranked runner in high school and through university, but just couldn't get over this injury once it started. And yeah, it was tough. It was a tough time just because my identity was so linked with running when I first started getting into the bike. But I immediately found a love for cycling because I got a lot of catharsis and a lot of stress release and relief from just being able to exercise again. I've been injured for such a long time. Running was becoming this source of major anxiety. Like every step I'd just be thinking, even if my foot felt good, I'd be wondering if it was good, if it was going to hold up for the rest of the run. And there were so many runs where I'd end up having just to walk home because my navicular was really, really bothering me, or another part of my body was acting up because I was trying to compensate a bit. And I wasn't getting that amazing high that you normally get from smashing out a good run where you just feel great after. I was always like, oh man, like something wrong here, or will I be able to run again? And so once my dad at the time had a bike and he was just getting into it, and he suggested I started riding just to maintain some fitness. And once I started borrowing his bike, I started riding just north of Ottawa up into the Gatineau Park, and it was lovely. Like all of a sudden I just was not thinking about how much my navicular was hurting or whether I'd be able to run the next day, but just thinking about myself again and kind of getting to that beautiful moment where you're just singularly focused on your suffering. And it's nice. Yeah. So that's how I got into it. And then from there, I started just doing local rides. Guys started convincing me to race. I'm a really competitive person. I really enjoy racing other people. I like seeing how I stack up against other people. And so I really enjoyed falling into racing again, getting that, like having the racing tickle that competitive scratch or itch. And yeah, that's how I got into it.
And you started at Garneau Québécois, right? Is that where?
Yeah, so my first year I actually raced for a local team in Ottawa called the Cyclery. I raced for them. And then the year following, I raced for a more competitive team called Garneau Québécois, which was they're what's called the continental team. So it's kind of like the lowest tier of it's called professional, but it's not. It's like you're not making any money. It's amateur, but you have a license that enables you to race against professional level teams. So that was my first real year of true racing.
And then to Optum, right? Optum.
No, so I took a bit of a journey. So I raced for Garneau that first year, and I was starting to focus more. I was still working full time that first year. I was 26 at the time, and it's pretty hard for me to justify quitting my job and training full time. And so I was just kind of goofing around, but we had this great sponsor called Power Watts, and Power Watts was Power Watts is owned by my now coach. It's owned by my now coach, Paul Saldana, and Paulo offered to do some testing on me as a part of the sponsorship of the team. And he tested me and was like, dude, quit your job, focus on cycling. You can be a pro cyclist. He just saw my numbers. He believed in me, and he managed to work out even some sponsorship individually from a guy named Sylvan Adams, who now funds Israeli Cycling Academy. And so those two, they kind of helped me believe and supported me. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to make a real full go at cycling. But in that year, right before I was supposed to do the biggest races of the season that were ideally going to get the attention of bigger teams, I broke my collarbone at Tour of Alberta. And all of a sudden I couldn't do the World Tour races in Montreal, Quebec. I couldn't do the World Championships, which I was kind of pegged as being a guy that was going to be doing those races. And those races would have been my opportunity to move up. I didn't get those opportunities. So then I spent that winter trying to get on every team possible, but no one wanted me. And finally a team in Italy that was led by a Canadian guy named by a Canadian guy named Phil Cortez, and the team was in Moravita. They invited me to come out and race for them. So I went over to Italy and raced for this team called Moravita. I was supposed to get paid, never got paid. There's a bunch of crazy. It was just a crazy 5 months on that team, just a lot of corruption, crazy stuff that happened. But I got introduced to European racing. I got my ass kicked. I crashed a bunch. Almost quit the sport. Paulo, my coach, and I, we talked a lot about maybe even me transitioning into Ironman. But finally, at the end of that racing block, I got a result. I got a result at Racing Canada called Tour de Beauce. And that got the attention of another American team that was at that time a relatively good team called 5 Hour Energy. I went to 5 Hour, so I transferred halfway through the season because I was so burnt out from Moravita. Got on 5 Hour Energy, and then 5 Hour Energy folded. So just as it folded, I got an offer to Optum, and that's how I ended up on Optum.
And then you placed well in California, and then the rest.
Yeah, then the year following, I had some good results and managed to jump up to the World Tour.
Yeah, that's certainly your perseverance, whatever. Sorry, loss of words, is certainly remarkable. That's a long journey. I don't know if that's something I could do. Okay. So we've talked a bit about the transition. So what do you think was the hardest part of the transition besides like getting on the team? So like the physical transition. And then what part of running do you think, aside from aerobic endurance, is the most transferable to cycling?
Well, yeah, I think the transition was pretty difficult for a lot of reasons. I was pretty naive to the skill side of the sport. I think the hardest part to overcome coming from running to cycling was the skills, and you don't get as much of a sense of that in North America. But whenever you go for a ride in Europe and you ride around the roads here, you start realizing, oh, it's a high skill sport. There's just so many more corners. There's so many more corners. The descents are really technical. Often they're wet, and there's a real respect I have now for the top cyclists in the world for their ability to pilot a bike. And I didn't have that level of respect when I first started cycling. And I'm actually glad I didn't, because I don't think I'd be cycling now if I knew how far I had to go as a rider to be where I am.
And what's the most transferable part besides like the heart and lungs aerobic endurance?
I think, so this is not for a lot of runners, but at the elite miling level, once you start getting into the NCAA level for racing the mile and above, there's actually a high skills component and tactics component involved. Like when I was running in high school, I could just run away from everybody. Like the draft wasn't important. I just had a big engine. I trained really hard, and I was able to drop everybody. But then when you start racing against guys who are as good as you or better, you can't just run away from people. And the faster you go in the mile, the more the draft becomes important. So when I first came into, when I went to University of Michigan, I lost a lot of races because I wasn't, my tactics weren't great. But over the course of the first year that I was there, and also being able to train with a guy like Nick Willis, who would go on to win two medals at two medals at the Olympics in the 1500 meters. I started learning how to race tactically in a mile. And if you are able to navigate a 1500 meters at elite level in the last, that last minute, it's actually quite similar to the run-in to a key feature of a climb in cycling. There's a lot of crap going on, a lot of things that are out of your control. Guys are trying to pass on the outside, trying to pass on the inside, and you're also suffering. So you have to make these crucial decisions while being at your limit. And I think that skill is really transferable to cycling.
Cool. Okay, so you finished 7th at the Vuelta, as we said earlier, won a stage, won Milano Torino, finished 3rd at the Worlds, podiumed in major classics. What's the bucket list title or like race you'd like to add to your palmares?
For sure, either a monument or a global championship. Uh, I've come really close in both. Coming second at Liège-Bastogne-Liège, I actually, uh, Bob Youngles got away with late in the race, and had he have not been up the road, I think I would have had a better shot at winning. I beat I beat Romain Bardet in a sprint for second, and that's one where I was really close. Also at the World Championships in Innsbruck, although I was third, I just had a bad cramp in the last 150 meters, and I really thought I was going to win with 300 meters to go. I was actually devastated when I crossed the line because I thought I had it. I could see the win, and it was gone in the last 150 meters. I actually had to sit down in the sprint just because my calf cramped up so much. So those are the two times. Like, I'm really proud of those results, but they're also indicators that I think I could win one. And those are either a global championship, whether it be the World Championships or the Olympics, or a monument. That'd be nice to finish off the career with one of those titles.
I remember that World Championships. It was a tough freaking course, but I was watching it and I was like, go, go, go. I was yelling at the TV just as much as I do if it was hockey or whatever. Yeah, it was pretty, but I thought you had them on the climb, and then on the descent, I was worried because like those two are good descenders, right? And then you were teed up, and I thought you were going to come around, and then the cramp happened.
Yeah, no, I was going really well on the climb. I actually I didn't want to go solo, just because I felt like it was a bit far for me. I'm not good at riding flat solo. And then I did a really good reconnaissance of the descent. But now my descending is far better than it once was. My descending, I've worked with a descending coach for several years now, and it's improved dramatically. And now I'm certainly not one of I'm not one of the weaker descenders in the World Tour. I'm certainly not. It's not it's certainly not a detriment to me now. And finally, like the descending skills were coming together, and I was just confident I was gonna do well in that sprint, especially when Valverde opened it up early. He went with 300 meters to go, and I was like, this is too early. I'm gonna just sit in his slipstream and come around him. But then cramped up in the last bit.
Damn. All right. Well, I guess there's always the courses seem to always be, except for that one in Doha or Dubai or wherever, they always seem to be kind of in your zone in terms of like the hilliness and the short punchy climbs. So
yeah, last year's was less so, but this year coming up, if it happens, which it looks like it should, in Switzerland is going to be even potentially one of the most difficult World Championship courses in history. So I'm really looking forward to that one. And ideally, if I'm riding outside now, if my femur continues to heal at the rate it's healing, I've got a good shot doing it there.
Cool. We got to make sure we get you some climbing teammates to hang in there. Okay, so you can run, you can ride, but can you swim?
Yeah, I can swim. I'm not amazing at swimming, but it's nothing a good wetsuit can't fix, I think. And I think certainly triathlon, doing the Ironman interests me when I'm done cycling, and it's something I'm going to explore in the near future.
And the Vaporflies will help your, or not the Vaporfly, carbon plated foam shoes will help your running and your foot.
Yeah, I think the running is going to be will be a challenge, just because my navicular is still not 100%. I won't be able to do the speed work I used to be able to do, but you don't need to do the speed work that I used to do in order to have success in the Ironman. You just need to be a good diesel. And the fortunate thing is I have my biomechanics, my stride is quite strong, and running at the speed I used to run at doesn't go away, and I think it'd be a huge advantage against a lot of the guys that race the Ironman now.
All right, so last question for me, and then I'll open it up to the floor for questions. So if you're on, you can either go into the participants thing and raise your hand, or you can type a question in the chat and we will get to it. But my last question is, and I'm wearing the shirt because I was going to ask the question, can you talk about the creation of Mile to Marathon, the coaching business you co-founded, and talk about where it started and how it's developed, and like why is that so important to you as well?
Mile to Marathon is something I'm really proud of. It's a company that Dylan Wykes and I founded back in 2013. Dylan had just finished the London Olympics. He was living in Ottawa because his wife Francine was studying in Ottawa, and we'd known each other for a while. We'd already been running with each other for a fair amount, just because he's from Kingston area and kind of brushed elbows quite a bit. And I had started coaching in that year. I was using it to supplement my income once I started getting into riding, and I really enjoyed it. I drew a lot of great energy from it. It started to dawn on me that that's something that I really wanted to do in the future. I was even at one point considering trying to be a coach in the NCAA for running. I just loved the sport. I had a real passion, and I still do have a real passion for running. I follow it. I read Let's Run almost every day. I like the sport aspect of it, and then I also like the self-improvement aspect of it. And I like being a part of really anybody's journey in whether it's in the sport, whether it's that self-improvement aspect or the competitive side of it. And it started taking off. I started having group runs in Ottawa and started picking up, gaining momentum. People really found that they're enjoying, especially the drill aspect that I started bringing in, doing some barefoot stuff. I picked up a lot of stuff over my career just through being injured, things that I would have liked to have done earlier on. So we started doing a lot of, toe walks and A's and B's and things that I think really improve running economy and enable you to run longer and have less issues running. So the practices started building, and that's when Dylan started jumping in as well. And we decided we were going to start a business together, share each other's clients, work together to try and grow our client base. And yeah, it started doing quite well. Then I really started doing well in cycling and started running out of time. The world tour, once I got into the world tour, I really, I didn't have time to coach anymore. The last client I really was coaching in 2016 was Melanie McCann. She was a modern pentathlete that went to the Olympics in Rio, and I was coaching her the run portion of her training. But my bandwidth, just the media requests, the travel, all those things took up too much of my time, and I felt like I wasn't devoting enough time to my clients. So I started really backing off on coaching. But Dylan kept the business going, and not only did he keep it going, he grew it substantially. He moved out to Vancouver, and just keeping in touch with him, it was amazing to see how far he took it. Group runs started really taking off in Vancouver. Rob Watson started coming on board, and all of a sudden we had this bona fide business that was doing really well. And at that time, around 2016, fast forward to around like about a year and a half ago, it was doing so well that Dylan, I think, was overwhelmed. He had probably 40 clients. He was just had so much managed. He has 2 girls. He's been busy, and both my wife Ellie and I, we were following the business. We were involved with it a touch, but not really. And we wanted to get back involved as much as we could. And Ellie, who has a ton of energy, she's a runner, and she has a lot of great business skills, jumped on board in the business. And since then, we've started the Run Club program. We've started having hubs, not just in Vancouver, but also back in Ottawa, which is really growing now. And we've got over 18 coaches working with us, and we've got some big plans for the near future.
And we're going to get a race series going, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the big plans. We've got a virtual race series going on right now, and I'd love to have a nice event series in the near future. I think Mountain Marathon, particularly for me, I love where Dylan's taking it, and I love where it is at the moment. But for me, it's something that I want to get involved with again once my cycling career is done. I want to coach. I want to be involved with an event series, as you mentioned, and I also want to preach and teach the great gifts that endurance sports can give to people.
Awesome. So we're looking forward to that. But now we will go to some questions. So we have a couple Dans on here, so I'm going to try and make them. So Dan asks us if EF has any plans to produce a documentary similar to the Movistar documentary. And have you watched the Movistar documentary?
Yeah, the Movistar documentary is great. I'm loving it. I haven't finished it yet, but really cool, especially because the first quite a few of the quite a few of the races I was in, so you just get cool shots of it from the other side. Movistar particularly is one of the teams I talk to least in the World Tour, just because of their Spanish influence. My Spanish is not strong at all, and so to get greater insight into guys like Valverde and Nairo Quintana was really nice. Yeah, there are a couple of things that are in the works with our team, but predominantly the big thing at the moment now is our EF Gone Racing series. We've got a nice series available on YouTube that's produced by Rafa, and really cool series. And I was actually doing a bit of filming for it today, just with the handy cam. We're gonna have a quarantine edition coming up soon, I think.
Cool. Looking forward to it. So I'll go to Ron, who's got his hand up.
Hi, Mike. It's great to hear that your leg is healing up quite well. Very impressive. Actually, you must heal very fast because, that was a pretty extensive injury. But you do seem to have your vast experience with crashes there, unfortunately, and your cycling. But I'm just wondering, physically you seem to be recovering well. I'm just wondering if mentally those things will factor in, like a crash like this will factor into like your next race as you're ripping down the hill into a tight turn, so much traffic. Do you think that will be in the back of your mind, or you just can't afford to have something like that in there and second guess yourself kind of thing?
No, good question. I think certainly that's going to impact me. It already has. I went for my first ride outside today, and I wasn't cornering as fast as I normally corner. I wasn't descending as fast as normally descend. So the mental aspect is something I'm going to have to work on. I'm going to have to do some visualization. I'm going to have to go back into look at some race video and just kind of put myself in a position mentally where I was descending well. And as I mentioned earlier, I do have a descending coach, and I'm going to have to queue up some sessions with him, get on the mountain bike, take some risks, get comfortable with taking risks again, and be race ready for when the races start back up.
Okay, thanks.
Thank
Okay.
you.
So another Dan asks, what's your most memorable fan or celebrity moment?
Celebrity, like me running into a celebrity?
I don't know. I think maybe
Yeah.
like meeting a fan and then maybe running into a celebrity. So let's do both.
Well, I think fan moment. I think it was awesome because I got the tour is just so much bigger than any other race. It's got such huge viewership. Like estimates are over, like I think it's close to 1 billion viewers each year. The numbers are huge, and you really feel how much bigger it is compared to other races. But I was going up. I forget what stage it was, but I was in a break with Nairo Quintana, and I came around a corner, and there were just like 6 guys wearing full Canada, like the Vancouver Canucks guys as well, like the
green
face cover, the green men, but they were doing full Canada suits, and they just ran with me for like 500 meters, and they were just screaming at me. It was awesome. That was like a huge, it was a really good morale booster. Special. And then after that, it was nice. That was probably one of my favorites for sure.
And what about meeting a celebrity? Have you met a celebrity along tour or another rider? You're like, oh my God, that's like, I don't know.
Patrick Dempsey joined the start of the Giro a couple of years back. So I rode with him. Not many celebrity. I mean, cycling's big, but it's not that big. I can't tell you. Maybe maybe that's probably it. That's the first thing that comes to mind at the moment.
He may not be a celebrity, but John Kerry follows your team very closely.
Yeah, he does. I guess you can put Usain Bolt up there. I used to race. I'm the same age as Bolt, and I'd race the same circuit, and I'd watch him break the world records all the time. And it was pretty special seeing him race.
I think that counts. All right, Dan has another question. He asked, what do you feel is currently missing from amateur and professional cycling? So example, technology, inclusion, education, gravel riding, etc.
I think what's missing from professional cycling and from even from amateur cycling is a level of accessibility. I think there needs to be more accessibility in the sport. From a pro cycling perspective, I think there needs to be more opportunities for people to understand and ride on the courses that we ride on. Having more mass start events, grand fondos that go in concert with big races like the Tour, like all the world tours that we do, like all the world tour races that we do. I think would give people greater understanding and access to what we do. Like you get so many questions from fans asking, what do you think of the Zonklon, or what do you think of this club? Because they ride them. And when you've been able to ride and see what were the races were, the courses that we're doing, just gives you more clarity and makes the sport more fun to watch. And then even from an amateur perspective, I think the sport needs to be more accessible in the sense that it should be easier. There should be less barriers for entry into the sport. I think one of the biggest problems within Canada particularly is that it's too much of a white collar sport. It's too cost prohibitive. And I think that's reflected in our performance as a nation in cycling. You look at other countries, Italy, Spain, they're less white collar sports. They are more blue collar. Kids are coming up and they don't need to have a boatload of money in order to have success in the sport, just because club programs are better. They're better funded. And I just don't think that it should be an arms race when you're 15 to do cycling, or even when you're 45. You shouldn't be focused on having the best bike or having the best gear, but more just enjoying the sport and enjoying going out for rides.
Good answer.
And so I guess I guess that what I need to say too is that there's a lot of snobism involved. And that's one thing I really noticed when I first started riding in Ottawa, is like guys would chirp me on my sock height, or the bike I was riding, or the shorts I was wearing. And like, I don't get that. I think that's BS. I never do that to other guys. I think that's not what the sport's about. It's not about a fashion show. It's about, riding your bike and enjoying it.
Yeah, no, I have to say for running, I'm pretty guilty sometimes. I see people running by and I'm like, you should really not be wearing jeans. But anyway, so guilty as charged. But I am in the same thing as cycling. It's like, I have a crappy bike. Well, it's improving. But, I get chirped all the time when I'm riding. We're trying to like hammer up pink and I get passed by some guy just like spinning. Okay, anyway.
Bike shouldn't be a source of shame. It should be bringing you pleasure. Like, who cares how much it costs? It should be something that you just enjoy doing and enjoy. You shouldn't feel bad about the bike that you're riding out your garage.
Exactly. All right. So Andy asks, what sport would you not want your daughter to get into when she's older?
Professional cycling. I think I've said I'm pretty adamant in this. I want Max to do whatever sport she like. I'm gonna put her in every sport. If she expresses any interest in sport, I'm gonna chuck her in. She can do whatever she wants. I'll just go pink if she wants to do any sport. But if she says she wants to get in a bike, I'm not gonna get her a road. Well, maybe if she wants to some rides with me, but I'll push her into mountain bike. I don't want to know that my daughter is taking the same level of risk that I am. It's disgusting what I do in races sometimes, just the risks that I take. I think if a lot of my family members had a real understanding of the risks that I'm taking, I don't think they'd even watch the sport. I don't think they'd watch me race.
Oh, geez. And I guess we could get into a whole nother discussion about like equal pay here too, right? Like,
oh yeah, that's something that I hope that by the time Max is of age to be, 20 years from now, I really hope that's not an issue. But at the moment, it's massive. It's a really big problem. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing that I'm in a sport that is so backward, that doesn't support women's cycling at all. We're talking now about the pay cuts that we're going through, and also the calendar for next year in terms of the men's world tour. But the picture that's being painted right now for women's cycling is far, far worse. they'll be lucky if they have, I don't know, 10 races next season. It could be that bad. Yes, I just get really frustrated when I think of what the UCI and what the sport in general has done for women's cycling, especially coming from a running background where you see equal pay, you see equal prize money. If anything, some of the best, highest earners in running are females. It's been shocking to be in cycling and that not be the case.
Maybe after you retire, M2M plus a Mike Woods development team for women and, well, for both genders in Canada. There you go. It's something to think about.
Something to think about.
Okay, so on to the M2M. Brian asks, you talked about different ideas. Are you looking to grow into different cities?
Yeah, certainly. I think that's, I mean, obviously right now we have to just focus on getting getting out of this. But that's certainly been in plan for the past year, is to expand our reach. I think one thing that I'd love is that, if you're from Ottawa and you're doing M10 runs in Ottawa, but you're traveling for business, or you're visiting family in Montreal or Calgary, that you could meet up and go on a Wednesday night to a designated location. It's going to be the same style of practice, same style of crew, same good energy, and same great people going for a run.
Cool. Josh asks, in the transition from 2015 to 2016 and joining the Pro Tour, were there any other teams you considered in addition to, at that time, Cannondale and now EF?
I mean, I'm really lucky. I'm on I'm really happy with where I am. The team that I'm on is quite unique. It's unlike most other teams in the World Tour. JV, my boss, he hires very interesting people. He hires underdogs. He hires people that don't often fit the cycling mold. That's the reason why I got on this team in the first place. He was interested in me. I was 29 when I joined the World Tour, so I was technically I was the oldest neo pro in cycling history. So I joined this team by virtue of JV's kind of idea that he's going to hire guys that don't fit that standard cycling mold, and because of that, there's a culture on this team that I love. There are other teams that I know if I was riding for, I would not want to be doing this sport. Teams that go on 3-week training camps to the top of a mountain to the top of a volcano in Tenerife, for example, where they don't see their wives or kids and just talk about cycling from sun up to sundown. And that's just not, at my age, particularly, what I'm interested in. I'm interested in now in I love racing. I love training, but I like also being at a race and being able to turn over to a guy like Mitch Docker, one of my teammates, or Lachlan Morton or Alex Howes, and we can talk about something else outside of the cycling sphere. So for me, it's difficult to consider other teams. I haven't really. I've had offers from other teams for sure, but I've always just been so happy to be riding for the team that I'm on.
And most of us in North America are EF Education First Draft Pack powered by Cannondale, or whatever the title is now, fans. So I think
we're just EF Pro Cycling now.
There you go.
Nice
and easy.
It's been a really nice transition into this team now with EF, our title sponsor. They've been a strong sponsor, and it's been a nice relationship.
So you just mentioned Alex Howes, Mitch Docker, and a couple other guys. They all have mustaches. When's your mustache coming?
I mean, I actually was rocking a mustache in the Giro a couple of years ago. We did we had the Grand Tour stash competition where we were all doing mustaches, but I don't think Ellie will kiss me with a mustache. She is not a mustache fan.
Yeah, when she was in town in November, I was like, "Oh, I'm going to do Movember," and she's like, "No."
Yeah.
Okay.
Very anti-mustache.
Yeah, and I was like, "You're leaving soon." No. Okay. Anyway, Dan asks, "Is pro cycling a chippy sport? Is there a lot of trash talk?"
No, not at all. Maybe there's a lot of conversation, but no. I think it's too much of a shared suffering experience for it to be chirpy. I think guys do do get angry. Guys get angry at each other, but very rarely do people talk trash. I think it's just because it's such a humbling sport. Even the best guy in the world, the best guy in the world tour only has like a win rate of maybe 10%. He wins 10% of the races that he does. So like everyone fails all the time. So it's so easy. Everyone eats humble pie, like in the season, even Sagan, like even like Froome, everybody, like you just get humbled too many times to consider talking trash to somebody else. Cause the next thing you know, you're on the deck, or the next thing you know, you're getting dropped. Yeah.
All right. So it's not like that Le Mans, that Bowerman spat with Le Mans and Career or whatever earlier this year on Let's Run. Anyway, where they were chirping each other. I don't know.
No, definitely not. Yeah, definitely not. It's just like running's so different in that sense. Running, it's actually one of the biggest problems I have with running now, especially seeing cycling, is that running, guys only do 20 races in the season on the track, and agents really try and keep guys from losing races. They want to have these undefeated streaks. So they, like, the top runners don't face off against each other often. And it like almost like it's boxing or something like that. And so then you don't see regular competition. You don't see these, you don't see guys duking, like one of my favorite eras in running. I wasn't watching running obviously at the time, but is like reading about it, is 70s and 80s when guys were racing 2-3 times a week, and you just see really cool, interesting races often. And that's what happens in cycling. You're racing 80 times in a season, but in running now it's very few, and so you have a lot more time to think, you have a lot more time to talk trash, and a lot less time to actually to race.
I like that too. Racing's the best. So Duncan Knight asks, he says, "Go Hawks," and he asks, "What was your favorite moment from high school track or cross country?"
Yeah, go Hawks. Good to hear from you, Duncan. My favorite memory, probably, actually one of my favorites was when I had a good high school career. I won quite a few races, and I loved racing in high school. But one of my favorite memories was actually, I loved the 4x400. I've always loved team events more than individual events. I love, like, we weren't the greatest 4x400 meter team, but we won the citywide meet, and I was always the anchor leg because I'd run the 3K. And then I'd be the anchor leg because the way it worked was the 3K would happen right before the 4x400.
Oh.
So I needed to give me the most recovery possible. They'd put me on the anchor leg, and so we'd always like, we had faster guys on the team, so we'd just try and give me a head start, and then I'd try and hold it off. And so you'd have the best anchor leg guys for the 400, guys who were running sub 50, guys who were like 48, 47 even, trying to mow me down, and me trying to hold them off in that last 400. And sometimes we do it, because I was the anchor leg, I get to celebrate across the line, and we won. And so we won the citywide meet. We just barely, we came second in the regional meet in Eastern Ontario meet, and we made it out, and that was one of my favorite moments.
That's like that second 200 must have been Lactic City.
Yeah, actually, I was always the last 100. I found like I could always get to the 2, but that is from 2 to 3 where I'd start kicking in. That last 100 was just always ugly, rolling down the windows, just tired out.
Okay, so Teresa asks, we have plans to go to Girona in September for a cycling trip. It should be awesome. And they're unsure whether the trip will go ahead or be postponed until next year. So what's your sense of how things are going in your area, and what are some must climbs in the area?
So I'm feeling a lot more optimistic about things now, especially today. Monday, the government loosened up a lot of restrictions. We're now able to, professional riders are allowed to ride throughout the day, but anybody is allowed doing activities during certain hours of the day. And they're saying now, May 11th, bars and restaurants will start opening up again. So I'm feeling optimistic that by September, everything will be back open, and things will be back open for business here. Yeah, hopefully you can make it, because September in Girona is my favorite time of the year here. Weather's great, far less tourists. Yeah, it's just lovely. Really great time to be here. And the must climbs, there are a lot of great climbs here. But I'd say my favorite one would have to be Mar del Dio del Monte, which is a big climb up in, it's a bit of a ride, but the top is spectacular and you get the best view of Catalonia from it.
Thank you.
Okay. Teresa also asked, how many more years do you think you'll be riding at an elite level?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Or hope you'll be riding.
Before this injury, I was really hoping to go for at least 4 to 5 more years. After this injury and after the state of professional cycling, like after this pandemic's really impacted, will really impact professional cycling. Sponsorships are going to be impacted, and that's going to affect the bottom lines of teams and rider wages. And for me, I'm going to have to just do a cost benefit analysis in the next couple of years as to whether I want to keep on going or not. I love cycling, but I also have I have passion for a lot of other things. I'm passionate about marathon. I'm passionate about coaching. I want to get into Ironman as well. And so right now I'm not sure, but yeah, I'm just gonna have to see how things play out in the next couple of years and see how my body's holding up, and see if I just want to take mild marathon to the next level or get into Ironman.
Awesome, thank you.
No problem.
So Dan asks, you mentioned how risky your profession is. Is it the speed of the descents, putting your body through extreme exertion, or other aspects?
I think it's everything. I think it's the speed, it's the exertion. The exertion both contribute to taking, like when you're more fatigued, you make worse decisions. And now the level of, it's not like I'm an old hat in the World Tour, but every year the level increases in terms of ability, and the professionalism of it increases. That has a lot to do with Sky and now Ineos, their kind of approach to this marginal gains. Now everyone does marginal gains. Everyone's trying to find that 1% in their training, in their bikes, and in their nutrition. And it's resulted in this peloton being so good. Everyone in the peloton is like, the worst guy in the World Tour is still an exceptional rider. Because of that, because of this closeness and level, you have to fight, and you have to fight for positioning. Positioning in the fight becomes so much more important. That's one of the reasons why I like the last week of a Grand Tour. The last week of Grand Tour, everyone's cooked. People are way more apathetic. They're less likely to fight, and you have a lot more freedom. There's a lot less stress because guys are taking less risks because they're just cooked. Whereas most races that you do now that aren't Grand Tours, that aren't the third week of a Grand Tour, everyone's fresh, everyone's super fit, and everyone has an earpiece with their director on the radio saying, you've got to be in this position at this point. So when you have 100 guys or 160 guys fighting to be in position and be at the front of a peloton where the road is only 10, 15 feet wide, there's going to be a lot of risk and a lot of stress. And I think that's the biggest contributing factor to why it's so dangerous, is that fight. I'm actually quite good at it. I enjoy it, but it's such a risk. You take crazy risks in order to get in that position. The speed you're traveling at, and again, like I said, that fatigue level, you're not. Even though best is, I'll finish and I'll be sitting around the table and we'll be talking and be like, well, I took a bit of a risk today.
Okay, so I like this next question. It's from Jonathan. How did you cycle cross-train throughout university and post-collegiately?
So I didn't start riding. I didn't really cross-train until my last year, until until my third year of university, I was running throughout, and then I started having injury troubles starting at the end of my second year, in my third, and finally the off season between my third and fourth season at Michigan, I was injured, and that's when I really started to ride. And in that time when I was riding, I came off the bike, and I immediately regretted not incorporating it earlier in my training. I think one of the problems with running is that it's so hard in the body if you want to, especially in the mile, if you want to do it at an elite level. And I don't think you can hit your maximum aerobic capacity just through running. I think it's just, unless you're running really, really slow. So that summer I started riding. I was riding 3-4 hours in some instances. And I started my cross country season up in my fourth year, and I was flying. My foot wasn't 100%. Unfortunately, it still didn't heal up, but I was flying. I had the best cross country season in my life until I refractured the foot later in the year.
Were you doing like training rides or outdoor rides, like on the train?
Outdoor rides. Yeah, I was going riding out to the Gatineau Park, doing loops of the park, smashing myself up Fortune, going as hard as I could up Pinks. I had a speedometer. I didn't have anything else, so I just trying to average 30K an hour. That was my goal, trying to average 30K an hour, and take some risks, go through some stop signs to do that. But I do it quite often.
Seems like you were meant for the chaos of the Peloton. Okay,
Yeah.
we've got a couple more questions, and then I will let you go. So what does your typical week during the season look like for you? So the question is percentage time spent on training, stretching, rehab, racing, family, team events, etc. I'm sure you have lots of sponsorship things that you got to do.
Well, I guess it really depends on where I'm at in the season. One thing I've come to learn is no week's the same unless I'm at racing. Racing's the most consistent. But when I'm in off season, it's just like a significant portion of the season's devoted my time's devoted to training, to building up for the season, whether that be on the bike. I'll try in the winter. I'll try and get between 25 and 30 hours per week on just the bike. That doesn't leave much room for anything else because I'm just tired. But I will try and do a bunch of stretching. We'll try and do a bunch of core work, but it's not the same as running. When I was a runner, I'd say it was a 1-to-1 ratio. If I put an hour in of running, I'd have to put an hour in of rehab work or core work. Whereas cycling and the bike is so efficient, it's so easy on the body that you can get away, you can cheat a lot and not have to do those drills, not have to do the core work and the lifting. But I really do try and get that in, particular in the off season, because I find I have less bandwidth for it once we get into the thick of things, just because of traveling, because of the demands from a media perspective. You have little time for the rest of the day to do the important things. And by the end of the season, I'm like a wet noodle on the bike. I have no core strength. I have by the end of the season, I'm a great cyclist and a terrible human being. Like I'm not strong in the core. I'm just super light and really efficient at pedaling. It's turning a pedal.
Okay, so Lucas asks, and I apologize if I butcher this name. My running coach, Josh Karina, I think that's
Josh Karanja. Yeah, Josh.
Karanja, there you go. Used to run against you in high school and like to use you as a role model for training and racing. So did you have any pro or elite athletes you looked up to and modeled your training after when you were younger? So I guess, do you have one for cycling or one or two for cycling and one or two for running?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Josh, that makes me smile. Josh was my training partner in high school. Him and I would just smash each other. We'd go we'd meet up on Thursdays and Sundays, and then we'd meet up like at least 3 or 4 times a week and just pound each other, race every workout, do super hard long runs together. And we both, I think, inspired each other to go to do bigger, better things. Josh would go on a full scholarship to Eastern Michigan University, which was only 10K away from where I went to University of Michigan. And yeah, great friend. I haven't talked to Josh in a bit, but great guy. And yeah, he ended up actually running with Jason Dunkley, a Paralympian, for a long time as well, and being his lead guide for many years. So really, just a really good person. And yeah, I think both Josh and I looked up to a couple people. I was a huge Kevin Sullivan fan when I was a runner. I still am. He's a great runner. Guy that I wanted to kind of be when I was in high school. Definitely the best miler in Canadian history. He's the reason he went to University of Michigan. He's the reason why I wanted to go to University of Michigan.
Was he coaching there when you went there?
No, unfortunately not. It would have been great if he was. I think he's really a great coach, and I think he's done a really good job with the University of Michigan program. Interesting person, smart person. Got his degree in engineering while he was at Michigan, and still managed to get countless All-American titles, win NCAA several times, and then arguably when you think back to 2000 at the 2000 Olympic Games in Sydney, where he placed fifth, you look at the guys in front of him, and it's hard not to think that he was at least should have been a medalist, if not the gold medalist, because those guys in front of him probably weren't doing it the right way. So he was just a great example, and I think I was really lucky too, because he was such a staunch anti-doper, really big believer in clean sport. And so for me, having that level of influence and that kind of role model as a kid was really important, especially as I found my way into cycling. But cycling, I didn't have heroes because I came into it so late. There's more people I just kind of wanted to model my career off of and model my training philosophies off of. And he would have been my hero if I got into the sport earlier, but I mean, he still kind of is. Swain Tuft is a great example. He's a Canadian cyclist that is renowned amongst the peloton. He just retired recently, but known for his toughness. Just a tough, strong guy that rode for Mitchelton Scott for many years, and wore the Maglia Rosa, the pink jersey at the Giro. Just a great guy.
So I had cycling heroes too, but they're no longer my heroes. Let's just go.
Yeah, I mean, Armstrong for sure was my hero when I was a kid, because I knew I was completely naive at the time. I believed him.
Me too.
Yeah, I guess you could say he was a hero of mine. Vinokurov as well.
Yeah, also. Are the rumors about Sveintuft true, that he rode from like BC to California for a training camp and that stuff?
Oh yeah, 100% true. He had a team camp and decided the best way to get ready for it would be to ride down to it. Countless great stories about Swain. Just an interesting person too, and great guy.
All right, so we'll let you go. I just have one more question for you. You said that the tour was on your radar, the Olympics and the World Championships for this year, before you got injured. And now that the Olympics are in 2021, hopefully, knock on wood, what is your calendar looking like moving forward if everything goes ahead starting in September? So are you planning on doing the tour in the Worlds?
That's a tough question, just because I need to see where my femur's at. I made the mistake in the past with other injuries of setting a time and setting a date on things before my body was ready to set those goals. That being said, I could come out of this as having the luckiest femur fracture in history, because my goals may remain the exact same as they were at the start of this year. If the tour does go off when it's supposed to go off, and if I manage to stay on the recovery plan I am, it'd be great to do the tour and use it as preparation for the World Championships. The tour finishes a week before the World Championships this year, right now, and I think it'd be great to do them just to prepare and be ready for those World Championships. And if you do the tour as well, it's going to give you a leg up on the rest of the season, because for me particularly, I always go so much faster for Grand Tour. The load that you get, the stimulus that you get from training, you can't replicate at home. It's too hard. I'm really hoping I'm hoping that the leg can heal up fast enough, and that the team gives me the green light to do the tour this year.
We are hoping everything goes ahead as planned. So I said that was the last question, but Jared B just joined, and I know he really, really wanted to ask a question, so I'll let him go.
My question is, is there anything is there anything that you miss about running the most versus cycling? Is there some days you just wake up and say, man, I wish I was a runner still, almost?
Yeah, certainly. I miss the simplicity of running. I miss like not having to pack food and bike pumps and and spare tires and making sure my bike works properly and gearing up. I miss when I'm doing that. I miss the simplicity of just throwing on a pair of running shoes and going for a run.
Yeah. Well, that's why you were one of my role models when I was at Hillcrest, just so you know that. So you're one of my inspirations.
Thanks, Jared.
So
Thanks, buddy.
I left feeling that. So I joined the Ottawa Lions, and I went full out just the way you did. So as best I could. And yeah.
Thanks, but I'm glad you did, man.
And how can people connect with you these days?
Right now I have I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter. Fire me a message, man.
Okay, sounds good.
He has a lot of followers though, so the key is just spam him. No, I'm kidding. Okay, so thanks, Mike, for
problem.
doing this. This was awesome.
Thanks for having me, buddy.